Hi, everyone.
Hi, hi everyone. Hi, Kayla.
Hi, Sarah. Welcome back.
Thank you. So I'm Sarah Kelly Palmer.
And I'm Kayla David.
You and we are back live this week for our Be Well Live Rhode Island after a week hiatus um, as we practice some self-care. So it's nice to see everybody. Welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time joining us. Kayla and I are part of the healing department at Family Service of Rhode Island. And we come together each Wednesday at 10 a.m. for discussions about supporting our wellness during the COVID-19 um, time we are all living in right now.
So please take a moment to share this with friends or start a watch party. Help us get this information out. Each week, we come to you with important information around our mental health because now more than ever, we need to focus on our mental health just as much as we're focusing on our physical health. And if you're struggling, it's important to know that you're not alone. And the more information that we're able to get out there and get that message out there, it's really, really important. And we'd like to ask for your help in doing that.
And just a quick housekeeping item. If you have any questions related to our discussion today, or even if you have suggestions about a future topic that you would like us to tackle during our Facebook Be Well Live sessions, please feel free to enter those questions or ideas in the comment section below. And we do our best to get to any questions before the end of our stream. However, if we don't make it to a particular question, we will make sure to follow up for sure.
So, last week we took a hiatus,
You
but
did.
we actually did have a segment, and we hope that you all got to watch it and enjoyed it just as much as we did. It was by far one of my favorite experiences, and we got to speak to three they're not young adults, youth, who not young adults just yet, Sarah.
Right, right. No, not yet.
But three youth that really got to talk about their experience in COVID-19, their thoughts about the ways that our systems are working in Rhode Island and how we're responding. And this week, we're actually kind of shifting our focus a little bit, still keeping it on COVID-19, but really talking about reentry. So after months of being a stay-at-home order or sheltering in place, we're venturing out, or we can begin to venture out to see people in small groups or medium-sized groups now. And it might be really great. It might feel really sweet to see our friends and our families, even if it's still within a 6 feet distance. But for many of us, while that really feels nice or is a great thought, for many of us, there's still so much uncertainty around the coronavirus. And that becomes a really difficult thing to handle as we're beginning to think about reentry. So we don't know how exactly this might impact us, right? The coronavirus, we are seeing kind of increases in numbers some places. We don't know how bad it might get. And so it's very easy to begin to catastrophize or to feel kind of overwhelmed, or even to be overwhelmed with what's the next step. I do want to venture out a little bit, but how do I do that in a safe way?
And I think, Kayla, just as we've all kind of experienced the quarantining together as a society, right? We're now all kind of experiencing this phase of kind of re-entry, right, into the world. Here in Rhode Island, I think we're on the cusp of a phase 3 of our re-entry plan. So it can be really hard and challenging to think about how to keep yourself and your family safe while navigating things that we also might be really excited to do, like going back to work, or if you've been working from home, maybe now going back to your office. Um, the idea of re-engaging socially with friends in person, not necessarily on a Zoom or right through your FaceTime. Um, and also, I think it's challenging. I know for me as a parent, it's really challenging to think about sending your children back to daycare or a summer camp, or even thinking forward to fall. I know a lot of parents are worried about what school will look like. So while this reentry can be really exciting, right? And we're like taking these baby steps back to kind of normalcy, I think it really can also be very anxiety provoking and hard to know what the right decision is for you or your family.
Yeah, and each of us has to make that decision on our own of
Yeah.
how we reenter, when we reenter. And for each of us, it may be really different. Some of us might, in some ways be more forced to reenter than others as we are going or being asked to come back to work, or as we have to kind of access childcare. And so some of those decisions might be decisions that we're making, on our own, of when is the right time to go to a restaurant, or when's the right time to go back to the gym, or when do I go to, someone's offered to have a cookout, do I go, right? Those questions that would have never been questioned 6 months ago are now things that we might spend a lot of time considering, right? And really kind of taking, kind of trying to think about how this might impact our health and our family's health. And for a lot of us, as we get ready to get back to out there, some of us might present with less worry than others. And, there are some challenges. Everyone's going to look different in terms of their reentry, things that their response to reentry. So it might be really challenging if you are saying, I'm not ready to go out yet, or I'm only ready for, to do socially distanced walks, when your friends are asking you to go to a restaurant, or when your boss is asking you to come back into the office. So those kind of the wide ranges of responses to reentry are really, really normal. But this presents a really challenging situation for all of us.
Yes. So today we thought we would kind of talk about some things that might be helpful to consider as we're moving through this next phase of reentry. So, thinking about how we're re-engaging in the world in a more in-person physical space. We are social beings as people, and it's really important for us to be able to make those human connections, right? And I don't know about you, but I love connecting with my immediate family every day. But I also love connecting with other people. So my work peers, my friends. And I think I'm a very social person. So it's been, I think, challenging for me not to be able to do that in person beyond my immediate family. So, um, so I think I'm kind of ready to go, Kayla, and get out there, but I also do have anxieties that I think are kind of holding me back. So I think it's going to be helpful for our listeners, and I think helpful for me, for us to kind of think about what we should consider as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think we're all reentering, like we too are reentering. So I know I was really excited to like go back to a store. Like that was my thing. I was like, oh, thank God. And then I got into the store and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put this cart back and leave. Because there is this challenge of like, we're really excited, but then, one of the things to consider is, what are the practices that places are, taking. So it's okay to call stores, to call gyms, to call restaurants, to call zoos and ask what practices they're taking to keep people safe. Because I think some places are taking more precautions than others. Some places you go into and they wipe down, grocery stores, they wipe down your cart. See someone at the front that's counting and checking how many people are coming in. Those things that kind of help us feel, they have the little navigators through the store, those things that help us feel safe. Other stores might not be taking all of those precautions. And so it's important to that you have choice in this, right? We all have choice in where we go. We have the option to stay informed, right? And that might be news, but that also could be, what are the places that I want to go doing to make sure that I'm safe and the people that work there are safe.
And Kayla, real quickly, I think that if you're in a family unit or you have a partner, I think having those discussions and being all on the same page about what is your plan if you show up to a store or a restaurant
Mhm.
and one of you isn't feeling confident about what you're seeing, or your anxiety kind of presents itself. So I think having those open discussions with your family, your partner, whoever you might be um, going with, right? Your friends even, can be a really important thing, so that that dialogue is an open one. And I think also, especially for children. So I was off last week. I'm a little sun-kissed, and we were in a situation where we were going to a store, and there was just so many people there. I could tell that my son got really nervous about it. So we decided not to go into the store. So I think it's also important as adults that we pay attention to our children's reactions, just as we were informing them about hand washing and COVID-19 and all those things. We also have to be having those discussions with them about reentry, so they don't feel scared.
Well, Sarah, that's so important because I think, as you were saying, like making a plan with your partner, I was thinking about, kids present their anxiety in many different ways, and hopefully you've been having lots of discussions about feelings, about stress, about how that shows up. But we know for kids, when we're and adults, when we're feeling really stressed, it shows up behaviorally. It doesn't show up, the more stressed we are, the less we talk about things. So that's something to consider. If your child's behaviors become different, if you notice that they're fidgety, they're becoming much more irritable as you're kind of sitting at a restaurant table or as you're in a store, that is, that might have been a time that you would have historically said, kind of just cut it out, right? And this might be an opportunity to have a discussion around, how are you feeling? Are you feeling a little stressed about this? Are there lots of people in here? And especially those high, for us those high volume areas, right? The grocery stores, Walmart, all of those places that we know have a huge amount of people in them, and that can't be avoided. If it's possible, maybe we don't, we still do a one person shop there, right? Sometimes when we re-enter, we want what's easiest. And for many parents, the easiest thing is to bring their kids with them to the grocery store. Right. If it's possible, that might still not be the best thing to do, right? Because it's very difficult to distance. Kids touch everything, right? They take off their mask, they're touching their face, they're putting things in your cart, you're putting them away. So if there are opportunities to still kind of practice some of these things we were practicing before, those might be good opportunities to do that. So maybe you're re-entering into the grocery store, into the stores as one person show, but then those other opportunities we're taking to re-enter with our families are the ones that we're doing really intentionally.
I love that. And I think reviewing with kids too, things like, so if you're going to be seeing friends or family that you haven't, right, we might not be still be giving hugs. We might be doing an elbow bump, right? Or a side hug, so that kids kind of know what their expectation is. I know for us, we've been so hunkered down for so long that yes, we wash our hands, but I know for my family, as we're kind of expanding our circle, I've been really clear with my son to say we now have to kind of double up and get back on that hand washing, as we were kind of in the beginning of this COVID-19 crisis. So it's those like tangible, concrete things to talk to kids about that can really help them, I think, release some of their anxiety, because you're giving them information and you're giving them a plan. And I think that also helps us as parents to kind of navigate the reentry with those kids. So, having those discussions, getting back to those concrete things of, we're not hugging, we're elbow bumping, and we're washing our hands extra, can be a really helpful thing as we're all kind of navigating this reentry.
Yeah. And I think one of the important things is, if you were a family that said you have to hug your grandma, right? These are the opportunities to really kind of talk about consent or to have kind of plans around,
Mhm.
touching. So maybe we give like a virtual hug or like a distance hug and just give a heart, or we give a wave, right? These are those opportunities. And I think, Sarah, you're so spot on. The more that we plan, right,
Mhm.
the more relaxed we can feel when we're engaging in these things. And it might be, we heard a lot from parents at the beginning of, my kid's really scared of wearing a mask. Or my favorite is like, I see kids all, I went to a zoo the other day with my nieces, and like I got anxious because I was like, they keep moving their masks. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. And the zoo did like an amazing job making sure that like there were places that you didn't touch, like these are high touch areas, don't touch those. There was hand
Mhm.
sanitizer
Mhm.
everywhere, and a certain path that you went, but they're kids, so they're going to
Right.
want to touch things, they're going to want to take off their mask. So one of the things that we really discussed was, can we design our masks so that they're super cool, so we don't want to take them off, right? So
Mhm.
those opportunities to do kind of crafting activities or things that we can do together that really kind of encourage us to use the things that don't maybe feel so great to use, like a mask,
Mhm.
make them less scary, make it a fun experience, because we
Yeah.
now have this like fun smile on our mask and now we want to wear it the whole time that we're in the zoo.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and then I think some of those things of, we were really heavy, I know for many families at the beginning, talking about COVID, how it spreads, what it is. Maybe we pull out those, we'll share them again, those virtual books, right, that talk about the spread of COVID in kind of kid-friendly terms. We talk about how it spreads, what we can do, like a plan to stop the spread or curb the spread of it. And we're kind of doing that as we're kind of re-entering again. I'm just reiterating the hand washing, the sneezing, the mask wearing, all of those things that help us feel like, okay, we understand why we
Mhm.
have to do the things that we're doing. Because for many young children, they can have lots of questions about, why do we have to do what we're doing right now? And that can be a really important piece of just those reminders of coming back and reviewing the things that we had talked about before.
For sure. And I think it's important to remember that we can do this at our own pace. So
Mhm.
just because you can gather in groups now that are larger than before doesn't mean that you have to do that, right? So you and I know, so a lot of the work we do is trauma therapy, right? So there's this idea of exposure therapy where if you are afraid of something or something causes you anxiety, expose yourself a little at a time to it, right? And then that helps you to kind of be able to cope. It's kind of the same thing here where if we you want to start with baby steps, right? So that you're not going from 0 to 60 and then kind of having a flood of anxiety or worry, right? So it's I think that you can every family, every individual can go at their own pace. So if you're not ready to go eat out in a restaurant, or if you're not ready to go to a mall, you don't have to, right? You can start um, by maybe going and getting to go from a restaurant or sitting outside instead of inside. All of those things, you can be creative and really go at your own pace. And that will help you and your family to be able to manage the stress that comes along with reentry, right? This whole COVID-19 thing has put a lot of stress on all of us. So you don't want to give yourself undue stress. So if it makes you uncomfortable to go to a barbecue with 20 people, you don't have to take that step yet. You can make that decision for your own family and do what feels best for you.
Yeah.
Um, and keeping that dialogue open about your feelings is really important. So let your friend know if they've invited you to a barbecue that it's not that you don't want to see them, you're still feeling a little anxious and you need more time. It's okay. It's good to be open with those feelings.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who wanted to do like a 6 person or 5 person, maybe it was five, it was a few weeks ago, 5 person meetup.
Mm.
And we were all pretty anxious about it. And so she ended up getting these little like flags and measuring it out in her yard. Like, here's where you can stand so that you're 6 feet apart. Because
Mhm.
if you all haven't noticed, when we don't have 6 feet markers, many of us, I know me included, don't know what 6 feet is,
Yes.
right?
Oh yeah. No
And
idea.
so those things can really help. How can we be planful? How can we support ourselves and each other? And I do think, going back to that, Sarah, that it's okay to say, I'm not ready to do this yet. And it's okay to walk into a restaurant and then have the feeling that you don't want to be there and walk back out.
Yep.
It's okay to call places. And I think the more information that we have and the more planful we are about these things, the better able we are to manage some of that worry for ourselves and our families. But it's important to know that we are seeing an increase in anxiety and worry as we re-enter in the general population, that is something to be expected because it is uncertain. And so it's okay to have some of those worries, but if you are pre-exposed to anxiety, if you already worried a lot before coronavirus, this could be disproportionately impacting you. So kind of thinking about, like Sarah was saying, maybe you don't go to a restaurant, but maybe if you haven't left your house and you've been doing kind of your grocery shopping online, maybe it's time to think about, do I call a friend and we do a socially distanced walk together, or do I go to a park to meet someone and have a picnic? Thinking about how we take those small steps to re-enter. And knowing that we can get pretty socially full pretty quickly, right? We're social people, but our bandwidth for socializing and then the bandwidth for the anxiety around socializing might be kind of different these days. And so you might have been the person that would go out all the time, and now going out, to see someone, at a restaurant is enough for the whole week, right? And then you're back in your house. That all of these things could be different. We might not react the same way as we did before, and that's okay. That things have changed, and so our reactions might be very different. And so remembering, how do we take care of ourselves? How do we be compassionate towards ourselves as we're kind of managing this new step or this new phase in the coronavirus pandemic?
Yeah, and I think being understanding of others too, right, is really important, and showing that empathy and compassion and leaning on your friends and families around kind of your anxieties and how you're feeling about this, or your excitement, right? So, right, if you have family that are excited to kind of re-engage, that's their choice. Let them do that. But being open and supportive of each other can be really helpful all the way around.
Yeah.
So keep that conversation happening and going.
Yeah.
And
remember,
because we can't predict the future or what's going to happen, but if we're open about our feelings and supporting each other, it'll be easier to get through for everyone.
Yeah. And then ultimately focus on what's in your control, right?
Yes.
Washing our hands is in our control. Making sure we have hand sanitizer with us if we're going out of our house is within our control.
Wearing a mask.
Yeah, our masks are within our
Yep.
control. We are in a control of how much sleep we get or how we take care of ourselves. We're in control of the information that we're receiving. We're in control of following recommendations from our Rhode Island Department of Health, right? So all of those things are within our control. There are lots of things outside of it, but ultimately taking care of ourselves is recognizing what's outside of our control and ultimately kind of focusing what is inside of it. And your reentry plan is your own, and that's within your control, right?
Yep.
So taking those steps, but taking them at a pace that feels comfortable for you, and not feeling the pressure to be further along than maybe you're ready to be as an individual or a family.
And I think it all comes down to why we come here every week, Kayla, is kind of our wellness, right? Being safe and being well. And I think that we all need to come together to help each other do that and keep these conversations going so that we can move into this next phase and keep our mental health still a priority.
Yeah. And if you are experiencing feelings that are overwhelming or you feel like you need help, it's never a bad time to reach out, right? If you or your child or your family or someone you care about is really struggling, reaching out for help. That's why we put up at the beginning and the end our intake number. That's why we're offering teletherapy, because it's an important time to seek help. It is really, really stressful. And it can, the coronavirus is not just impacting our physical health, it is impacting our mental health as a community. And it's important to be focusing on our mental health just as much as we focus on our physical health.
Well, thank you, Kayla, for engaging in this discussion this week. I think it was really helpful. I hope it was helpful for you all out there. I know it was helpful for me. And I'm going to be making a plan of reentry for my family because I think it will help. It will help us. So we look forward to seeing you all next week when we come back for another discussion. Here
Wednesday at 10 a.m.
That's right. And thank you all.
Thanks, and be safe and be well.
Bye-bye.